Got it. All right, awesome. Okay, well, I'm super glad to be here. It's always nostalgic for me because I am from the Naperville office originally, and then I branched and ran the Naperville office for a summer, and now I get to be speaking in front of people from the Naperville office as well as Arlington Heights. And just to bring it all full circle, I'm actually wearing a quarter zip that Greg Strine, my original manager, gave to me. So just thought that would be cool. But I hope you're all ready to write. Take some notes because I'm bringing the goods tonight. Okay. And just shout out to Maddie on the great talk on the salmon knife. One thing I'll just say, just to go a step further from Maddie's talk, is those videos, like the video that she used that shows like Jason Jeffrey filleting the watermelon. I literally use that on a daily basis. What you can do, whether you're doing like a virtual demo or you're doing an in-person demo, is screen record those videos to your phone and then play them during your demo. Okay, so like incorporate that into your names and uses and have them on hand. Like I just have like an album in my phone that's literally filled with, it's got at this point it has over 200 like pictures and videos that are just Cutco related, but have an album where you can like quickly find videos of certain knives so that you can show them being used in action. So that video filleting of the salmon knife on a watermelon I use on a daily basis. All right. So just to kind of dive right in here. All right, I want to make sure I can see everyone. That way I can better engage with you all. So we're going to be talking about, confidence in your demos, closing big, handling objections. Um, and in a talk like this, it's always important just to start in a place of mindset. Um, Last week, I sold almost what I did my entire first summer. So I sold $22,000 my first summer. Last week I sold 21,800 CPO. Okay. In the last 7 days, I sold one ultimate, three signatures, three homemakers, and one galley set. And it didn't even feel like crazy going through it. Okay. And so we have to start with mindset because your mindset is the cap for what you're able to do. Okay. One thing that I often like to ask people is what is normal for you? Okay. How would you define normal? Okay. What is a normal sized order for you? Is it 200 CPO? Is it 600 CPO? Does it feel like you just hit the jackpot when you have 1,000 CPO order? Or does that feel like a normal part of your business? Okay. What does a normal week look like to you? Is selling $1,000 and getting on the newsletter a standard that you have for yourself? Or is it like selling $1,000 is, man, I really cranked it out this week? Okay. What is a normal closing rate to you? Does it feel normal when you have a couple no sales out of every 6 or 7 demos that you do? Because naturally you're going to have no sales. I have no sales. Okay. What or even questions like what is a normal amount of bonus points that you use to close a deal? Okay. Asking yourself what is normal and growing in this business is all about creating new normals. Okay. So if right now it feels normal to have 500 CPO every week, going from 500 CPO a week to 1,000 CPO a week, that's how you grow. Okay. It's when you get to 1,000 CPO a week feeling normal, you can say, wow, I've actually grown. Like before, it felt like it took this much effort. Now I'm putting in the same amount of effort and getting better results. Okay. So you have to constantly be evaluating what is normal for you. And you for those in Lindley's office, maybe you've heard this before, but the person who sells the most is the person who can ask Mrs. Jones for the most amount of money with the straightest face. So if you can ask someone for, I mean, an ultimate is almost $4,000 if they get it with steak knives now. If you can ask someone calmly and confidently, with bulletproof confidence, that this set is the best thing that they could possibly be investing in for their kitchen, that's a completely different question than if you're like, oh, this set's really big, Mrs. Jones. Like, I don't know, it's a lot of money. Like, do you maybe want it? Like that's just it's a completely different experience for both you and for the customer when you have utter confidence that what you're asking for is something that is completely worth it. Okay. So when it comes to thinking about like selling big on a demo, right? We could talk about like what does it take to have $1,000 average order? What does that actually look like in action? And for me, the mindset behind that is realizing that $1,000 average order is really just each person on average spends about $200 to $250 on a 5 pay with you. And if we break that down, that's really no different than Mrs. Jones's TV, internet, phone bill, streaming services, all those things that they literally pay for every month without blinking an eye because it's just normal to them. That $250 goes by so fast, right? If we add up all the different streaming services that everyone has these days, like there are so many subscriptions that people have just for their TV bill. Okay. Or think about it this way, $250 a month is no different than the amount of money that they waste on Amazon every month on things that are not going to last forever. The average household is spending this type of money naturally. And so if you can have the confidence that if you have a married homeowner who is cooking in front of you, that they can spend $250 a month, you can get to $1,000 average order. Okay. And so one note I'll make on this, kind of a practical thing that stems from this type of mindset, is how we talk about the sets. So when I talk about the different sets, I rarely ever use the word ultimate, signature, or homemaker. Okay, my customers know the sets as complete set, family set, and basic set. Okay, complete set, family set, and basic set. Because the word ultimate sounds a little bit more daunting, a little bit more intimidating. Okay, complete, it's like, oh yeah, like I want a complete set. I don't want something that's missing something, right? Or family set, like, well, I do family cooking. Okay, or basic set, it's like this is just a basic set of knives. Think about it. A homemaker, when you look at the size of a homemaker, it's roughly the same size as all the other knife sets that Mrs. Jones sees when she goes to the store and looks at knives. It only makes sense that that would be a basic size. It's roughly the same size as the knives she's already seeing at the store. Okay, that's the basic set. And then I like to call the galley set the starter set. Okay, so complete set, family set, basic set, and starter set. Okay. Now, one of the things that's really important about your demo is asking really good questions. Okay, write this down. The person asking the questions is the person in charge of the conversation. Okay, the person asking the questions is the person in charge of the conversation. Have you ever been through a demo and you get into closing, or maybe you're just like going through names and uses, and all of a sudden your customer's asking you question after question after question, and it feels like your whole demo just got derailed. It's like, what are we talking about right now? Right? The person who asks the best questions is the person who can stay in control of the conversation. So there are two places where I like to talk about this. Number one is during what we call cooking report. So asking questions so that you can learn more about your customer's kitchen. Because remember, as salespeople, we want to be their kitchen consultant. And we can't help them find the right set for them or help them build desire in Cutco if we don't actually know what they're doing or using in the kitchen right now. So here are a few good questions that I like to ask, and I'm just going to kind of riff off these. But these are questions that I ask every single time, no matter what. Okay, Mrs. Jones, do you ever cut watermelon, pineapple, sweet potato, or squash? Mrs. Jones, Do you ever cut watermelon, pineapple, sweet potato, or squash? Okay, why am I asking a question like that? Because if she's saying yes to those things, I know pieces in the signature set and the ultimate set that would make her life easier cutting those things. Okay. Another good question. Mrs. Jones, do you guys ever grill or barbecue at home? Do you guys ever grill or barbecue at home? Okay. And if the answer to that question is yes, I have a follow-up question that I ask every single time. Okay. Cool. Are you guys cutting things like brisket, tri-tips, ribs, or roast? Are you guys cutting things like brisket, tri-tip, ribs, or roast? Okay, you guys, like, even if you don't cook or you don't grill or barbecue, if someone tells you that they do grill or barbecue and then you ask that question, you've just shown them that you at least know something about what they're doing and they're going to trust you to help them pick out the knives that are going to make the most sense for them. Okay. And again, if they tell me like, oh yeah, we cut brisket, like tri-tip, like we just love meat, we're carnivores, right? It's like, boom, I know the pieces like the hearty slicer, the salmon knife, the boning knife, the cleaver that you have to have, Mrs. Jones, because these are gonna make all those tough jobs way easier. Okay. And then the last question is, do you guys ever host or entertain? Do you guys ever host or entertain? Because selling sets like the signature set or the ultimate set, if someone is hosting or entertaining you guys, like the ultimate set is the only set that has enough steak knives, period. Okay, I find, Mrs. Jones, that my customers either need service for 2 or for 20. So this set actually is the only set that has enough steak knives. Okay. The other place where it's really important to ask really good questions is during closing when you're handling objections. Okay. You want to be the one asking questions during when you get an objection. Okay, all an objection is just an ask for more information. Okay, when I hear an objection in my mind, I'm just thinking, show me how I can get this set. Okay, help me get the thing that I want. And I'll actually tell my customers, like, Mrs. Jones, like, my job is literally just to help you get what you want. So help me help you. Would you say this set is too many knives, too high a price, or a little bit of both? Okay, that's a really, really good question. If you don't know that one, I would start using that immediately. Okay, when someone says no to a set, is this set too many knives, too high a price, or a little bit of both? Now, I'll give you a hint. If they say it's too high a price, or if they say it's too many knives, the it's almost never that answer. Okay? If the ultimate was only $700, they would buy it. Doesn't matter how many knives came in it, like they would buy it, right? So really, it's almost always a price. We want to just find something that they would be comfortable spending that's going to fit their budget for what they're going to use. But the answer to that question now helps you to drop down more effectively. Okay, if they tell you that it is too many knives, it's like, oh, no big deal. Actually, we have a set, Mrs. Jones, that's actually a few less knives, and it's a lot less money too. Why don't I just go ahead and show you that one? So when you're dropping down, frame the next set or frame the next option as the solution to the objection that they gave you. Okay, another really good question that gives me a lot of information is would you use it if you had it? Okay, let's say I just got a customer to say yes to a homemaker. Okay, But that customer also told me they grill and barbecue. I might go back and say, by the way, Mrs. Jones, I remember you said that like you guys like to cut like brisket and tri-tip. Um, just out of curiosity, would you use the Hardy slicer if you had it at home? Because I think that would actually help a lot for those things that you're using. Boom. Okay. Now they might tell me like honestly, I'd never use that. I would just use the butcher knife for all those jobs. Great, no big deal. We've got a homemaker. But if the answer is yes, there's the opportunity to have an even larger average order or have an even larger order in front of you. Yeah. Awesome, Mrs. Jones. We could actually just add on the Hardy slicer and we'll just get you a sheath with it to keep it safe in the drawer. And guess what? You actually don't need to bonus that Hardy slicer either. Because remember, your job is helping them to get what they want. If they said yes to the homemaker and they want the Hardy slicer, they'll pay for it. Okay. I like to give free stuff as an incentive, as a motivator to say, let's just make this happen today. Okay. Just so that they feel extra good about the deal. Okay. And as a last resort, guys, if I'm working with someone on a demo who's, they're just not that into it. Okay. Which every once in a while you might get someone like that. It's like, cool, no big deal. Well, I just have to finish my presentation to get credit and show you all your options. Is that cool? Super chill, super nonchalant. And then you continue to drop down slowly, step by step, because they might find something that's like, actually, I might use that. I could swing that. Let's just do that. Okay. So, one of the keys to closing and handling objections, and write this down, is be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. Okay, you have to learn to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. The best salespeople are actually the least pushy, contrary to popular belief. Okay, so I'll actually tell people, like, hey, Mrs. Jones, like, I'm totally unattached to whether you get this or not today. But remember, my job is to help you get what you want. So just out of curiosity, like, would you use this if you had it at home? Okay. And I want you to notice like my tone and my attitude when I say that. Okay, the tone when you're closing, and have this tone like if you're, reading through the drop down in your manual, you can have this tone. Okay, it should be chill, it should be relaxed, it should be nonchalant. Okay, the attitude is that everybody buys Cutco, everybody buys Cutco from you, and buying Cutco is completely normal. Okay, the attitude should kind of come off as like you don't really care if they do it or not, but they're crazy not to do it. Does that make sense? Okay, being chill is going to help the comfortable or help the customer feel comfortable in what would normally be an uncomfortable situation. It's not necessarily fun for someone to tell you like, I don't want to spend my money on that, right? And so if you can be on Mrs. Jones' side and be like, totally fine, Mrs. Jones, let me show you something that I think would actually make more sense for you. That's the attitude you should have when closing. Okay. So, and I like to even show this from the very beginning when I'm sharing my goals. Okay. Like Mrs. Jones, whether or not you get anything today is totally up to you. Okay. Your manual probably says something like, you don't have to buy anything today, right? I like to say, whether or not you get anything today is totally up to you. But if you do see something you like, let me know because I'd love to cut you a deal and it helps me toward my goal. Okay, I'll just say that one more time. Whether or not you get anything today, Mrs. Jones, is totally up to you. But if you do see something today you like, let me know because I'd love to cut you a deal and it helps me toward my goal. Okay, say the cheesy knife jokes. They love it. Okay, this helps the customer feel like they're the one in control. Okay, if you've ever talked to your parents before about like when they've been in like a car dealership buying a car, anytime that they've ever had an unpleasant interaction in a car dealership or in like a sales situation in general, anytime people have had an unpleasant interaction, it's because they felt like they weren't in control and they weren't being heard. Okay, customers buy because they feel understood, not because they understand. Okay, I would write that one down. Customers buy because they feel understood, not because they understand. Okay. And see how that connects to even just things like calling the homemaker the basic set or the signature set the family set. A customer can feel more understood, can feel more connected to a set called the family set than a set that's called the signature set. Okay. So we want to understand our customers when we ask questions during cooking rapport so that they can feel understood when we then present the set or the knife or the pieces or the package as the option that's going to meet their needs. So, one way I really like to build the value when I'm going through names and uses is by sharing stories. Okay. And there's two stories that always get shared. The my mom story and the one of our customers story. Okay. And here's what I mean. Okay. My mom makes an appearance in like every demo. Okay. Like Mrs. Jones, like Cutco has this really awesome wedge lock handle. Okay. If you're in person and they can hold it, that's awesome. If not, like I love to use the story like my mom has arthritis. And so she loves our handles because they're so much more comfortable for her hands and they never slip. Okay, that's a story that just shows the value of having the Cutco wedge lock handle. Okay, so you can share a story like my mom loves this knife because of how easily it cuts through onions and you never cry. Okay, and if it's not my mom, right, or my dad, it's one of our customers. Now, I'll often say, like, one of my clients, one of my own customers had this experience, right? And if you don't have a customer or you don't know one of your customers that personally had this experience, just say one of our customers. You can borrow a story because Cutco has lots of customers. Okay. So, for example, one of my customers dropped one of their knives into a fire pit, completely melted the handle. They took it, sent it back into the factory, and Cutco literally just replaced it for him for free. Isn't that awesome? That's a story that helps a customer understand the guarantee. Or one of my customers used their carving knife as a screwdriver, literally broke the tip off Mrs. Jones. Like, completely abused the knife. Even though they shouldn't have done that. They took their knife, they sent it back to the factory, and Cutco just replaced it for him for free. Isn't that crazy? Okay, so a customer is going to understand the value of the guarantee so much more when they have a story that they can relate to and connect to, because now they feel understood. Just connecting. Okay, and before we kind of go into Q&A here, I'll just kind of finish with one last point. Um, is creating a larger average order can also come from upselling. So once someone does say yes to you and they say, yeah, we'll go ahead and get the 5 pieces, or yeah, let's get this like list, or yeah, we'll take the signature, we'll take the homemaker, whatever it is, you can always add on after they've said yes. Just because someone has said yes doesn't mean they're done buying. In fact, the first yes is always the hardest, the second yes is always easier. The first yes is always the hardest. The second yes is always easier. Okay. So at that point, if someone said yes to a set, you don't stop showing them the cookware and the outdoor knives and the garden tools, the flatware, because they might see something there that they like. And now you can say, "Hey, Mrs. Jones, like because you're doing this homemaker today, I can do this. Like I can get you this ice cream scoop with it for free. But if you wanted to also add on the flatware today, just because I'm working super hard towards my goal X, Y, and Z, I could also buy you this. I could also buy you the kitchen tools. I could also buy you, you know, name that deal. How would that sound? And half the time they'll say no, but half the time they might bite. Okay. So don't be afraid after you've gotten an order to ask for the order again and add something on. Okay. So I'll just say that one more time, just so you know, because you're doing the 5 pieces today, we're gonna go ahead and get you that pizza cutter with it for free. But if you also wanted to get the cleaver and the hearty slicer, because I'm working super hard towards this goal, if you wanted to just add those on, I could also get you an extra cutting board with it for free. How would that sound? Okay. So the first yes is the hardest, the second yes is always easier, and you'll find that people will oftentimes be open to just adding things on because you're working hard and because you asked for it. So that's what I got.
That was awesome. That was great. Can we give Q a round of applause?
Job.
I was like, that was fantastic. Sweet. I want to make sure you guys get the chance to ask a bunch of questions. It's a really big deal that Q is here. First of all, Q, thank you for being here tonight. Like I know you're on base, right? You're like doing training
Yeah,
or
I'm literally in the middle of nowhere, Idaho right now. Like there's like nothing for miles and miles around me. Yeah.
thanks for hanging out and finding Wi-Fi. That might have been tough too. But what questions do you guys have? What takeaways, questions, comments? The floor is yours.
Yeah, here I have a question. So, first thing, like when Tarek introduced the ultimate to us, what he would say is that it's the buy once, cry once special. I feel like it's kind of difficult for me to come off like saying this is our buy once, cry once without making it feel like threatening in a way. So, is there like a better way to go about saying that?
That's a great question. So I actually say the phrase buy once, cry once all the time. And this just has to do with like my style is I throw a lot of like just little funny one-liners and jokes into my pitch and into my demo. And so that feels like totally authentic to me to just say like, just so you know, Mr. Jones, this is like the buy once, cry once set. People who buy this buy it because they like the idea that they can be one and done and never buy this set of knives again. Okay. Um, I tell people all the time, like Cutco is a buy once, cry once, smile forever product. Okay. So it's just like if that doesn't feel authentic to you, you don't have to say it, but I say it all the time when I talk about the ultimate.
Nugget, thank you. Also, I kind of wanted to relate like the storytelling. I took notes of the ones that you told, but my mom almost cut her finger off because she was using the bread slicer on a bagel. I was telling her she needs a spatula spreader. So like that's kind of when I'm in a demo, I'll stress like why it's efficient to have every piece.
Yeah. Stories are great for showing a point like that, like having the right tool for the right job. Stories are great for that.
Yeah, people buy based on emotion, not logic. Awesome. Who next? Who else has questions? If you guys want to, Ryan, go for it.
Mine's a little bit more of a takeaway, but I really liked how you said that customers buy when they feel understood, not when they understand. Because I think we talk a lot about how a confused customer always says no, but even if they understand, it's still different because it's logic, it's not emotion. So I really liked that.
Wonderful. Beautiful. There's a reason we say facts tell, stories sell. Stories are the things that do it. Wonderful. What other questions and or takeaways do you guys have? What were your nuggets? I have like 4 pages of notes. That's great. I have a question for you, Q, because
Yeah.
I believe everyone on here is a student. Um, you earned 9 scholarships. Like, I don't think you guys are understanding how big of a deal that is. And it's not like he earned it by a little bit. He earned it by a lot of it. What would you recommend for like staying quote unquote motivated or disciplined during school? What are your tips for, if someone feels like they don't have momentum now, building momentum in the middle of the semester, um, maximizing demo slots? Like, talk a little bit about that. I know you were intentional about that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna be a little bit blunt here, okay? Because just in terms of having a why is so important, okay? For me, like having a zero paycheck is a big enough why for me to work. If I'm not getting paid I mean, and I felt this way throughout school, like if I wasn't getting a paycheck, like I gotta work, around school. And so that was a big enough why for me to just like keep on going because I know I'm very competitive and I don't want to like, Friday morning see that I didn't get money deposited into my bank account from the previous week. Just to be completely honest with you, like I wanted to string together those paychecks. Um, but if you're not sure like what motivates you, like I would do some journaling and like write down like what are 10 things that if you just looked at them every single day, like maybe like even right before you started phoning to remind you like, oh yeah, like I'm working towards like I want to do this study abroad and I got to pay for that. So that's going to be my why this semester, right? Or maybe it's like you have um I don't know, maybe you're gonna buy yourself something, right? You're gonna reward yourself something if you hit like a certain CPO goal. That's gonna be your why, right? But you got to identify like what is the thing that is gonna get you going when things get tough. Because the reason why so many people quit and don't get an All-American is because when things do get tough, they just give up and they say like I can't like there's no hope for me now. When really it's not the case because you've probably seen like you've gone into demos with people who you thought were absolutely not going to buy and then they bought. And you've gone into demos with people who you were completely sure they were going to buy and then they didn't buy, right? You've gone into weeks where you thought, like, I don't know about these demos I have lined up ahead of me, and then you sold Cutco, right? And so, really, everything can change so fast in the business. And so, when you are at those lows in the sales roller coaster, you just have to continually remind yourself of your whys and keep doing the activities that produce the results.
Yeah, Q, how are you feeling in the middle of November about your 300K goal?
I felt so behind. Like the last 8 weeks, the last 8 weeks of last year was just the longest marathon I've ever run. I don't run marathons, but that was like I went into the month of December last year $50,000 away from hitting $300,000. So I had 17% of my goal ahead of me in 1/12 of the year. Okay. Anyone would have gone into that and said, like, it's too late. But I knew that it was possible. And if I just stayed committed to the actions until the very last minute, no matter what, that at least at the end, I'd be able to say I gave it my all. and I ended up hitting 300,000 the second to last day.
And then went on a cruise like right after. Which was awesome. Sweet. That's huge. Yeah. I always think about reasons why for pushes. I don't think as a student, I was like, here's my reason why for this week or my reason why. And if you're not financially motivated, like I know Q mentioned some financially motivated things. If you're not financially motivated, because I know some of you aren't, so it's like, hey, I want to build my experience so I can be a kick-ass AM over the summer for Gianna, for Tarek, for me, like whatever the situation is. Like I want to build my stories so that over the summer I can coach my reps with that. Or I want to be at this commission level, or I want to put myself where it's at the end of the summer, it's no question if Mike is picking me to go to Olean, and there's no question if Mike picks me to branch or not. Like maybe that's the boat that you want to be in. Because Q really got to have like Q put himself in a position of choice, even in regards to branching, because he was someone who Mike was aware of 12 months of the year, not just summertime and winter break. And so like that's a big area of opportunity for all of you on here who are selling during the school year. Okay, we have like 5 more minutes. What other questions do you guys have? It could be on closing, it could be on whatever you guys feel like you're struggling with, your biggest areas of opportunity. Roberto, go for it.
Yeah, one question I got is what do you typically do like to push like recs? Like to get like as many as you can? Because there's like always those customers that's like, hey, like I don't really feel comfortable with that. Or like, hey, like what do you typically do? Like what's been your recommendation for that?
Yeah, couple things I would just say on Rex is like the for me the biggest thing to getting a lot of Rex is social proof. So remember I talked about earlier about like the attitude and the tone that you have like when you're closing and when you're dropping down is like everyone buys Cutco and it's normal for everyone to buy Cutco. Like that's the same attitude you need to have like when you're asking for Rex. Like if you're literally even the least bit like scared that you're not going to get Rex, like it's going to show in your tone. It's going to show in how you ask for it. So you have to be so memorized and so confident with your rec approach that it's like literally everyone gives me Rex. Like I don't you don't ask for Rex, you expect them, right? And so the way you do that is like I mean, I don't. I think you guys have like an app or something that you use. I honestly have never used the app.
We
Like
just use
I'm okay. I'm kind of old school and I like do recs on paper because what I like to do is I like to take my notebook and literally flip through the pages of 10 plus recommendations and be like, "Oh, like," and I just I don't even like talk about like what's on the pages. I just flip through them while I'm giving my rec approach and they can see while I'm talking, like, oh, like literally every freaking person gives this kid 10 plus names. I guess it's our turn. Like that's the attitude. Like, and then I hand them the notebook. I put the pen down after I've written 1 through 10, and I hand it to them, and then I look away and be like, cool, who would the first person be? Because I'm just expecting them to write down that first person. And as soon as they can start getting the first one down, they're just gonna keep on going. Okay. It's also about planting seeds throughout the demo. And saying and like when you're asking those questions, like, do you like to host or entertain? Like you can ask like, cool, like who comes over? Like, do you have fit or your kids live nearby? Like, do you host your neighbors? Like, is it people from church? And then you just make a mental note, and then at the end you're like, oh, remember like those friends that like you have over like when you're hosting, like, why don't we put them down? Okay, like or like who are the people you go to church with that you said like you get like lunch every Saturday with, you know? Like let's put them down. I'd love to meet them. I'm sure they have some pretty cool stories. And so it's like planting seeds and gathering information throughout the demo so that you can ask for those people at the end. But also they're not surprised when you ask for recommendations because you're like, my biggest goal today, Mrs. Jones, isn't that you buy everything with that we have. Though that would be great. My number one goal is just that you like me enough to tell everyone who's ever smiled to you about me. Does that help?
That helps a lot. Thank you. I appreciate it.
awesome. Last question here. I know one of you's waiting. If you have a question, someone else has a question. Nick,
I
go
have
for it.
one. I have one. Yeah, so it goes along with the recommendation approach. I feel like I mean, this isn't really a problem, but I feel like my like after my demo, they forget to like text the people that they've recommended. So um I feel like
Okay,
yeah, I could
I'm
start.
really I'm really really glad that you brought this up, Nick. Because this is so important. You know that when you call a referral and they haven't been texted, that phone call it goes on a completely different trajectory than one where they have been texted, right? Like it is a completely different phone call. So, how do we make sure that they text them? You text for them. Okay. So what I literally will do, and I don't know how many of your demos are virtual and how many of them are in person, but if I'm sitting in person with someone like in their home, I'll be like, "Cool, Mrs. Jones, I've done this a million times before." And I'll reach out my hand and it like again, I just expect them to hand me their phone. I don't ask for their phone. I've done this a million times before. I can just help you do it real quick. And then I take their phone and I'll be like, I'm not going to do anything without like your permission, your say so. But all we're going to do is we're going to send a couple three-way texts with me and each person that we have on this list. That way they're not surprised when I give them a call. So and then you do the copy and paste and then put it in the three-way text with you and the person on the list. Okay. Or if I like to do three-way text because then when that person replies, I can see the response. You don't have to do three-way text, so you can also just copy and paste it with each person and then just do it for them because some people you're sitting with like they do not know how to use their smartphone. Okay, so just do it for them. And if you're on a virtual demo, and it's like, hey, cool, Mrs. Jones, this is gonna be super quick and easy. I'm gonna walk you through it. It's only gonna take us about 2 minutes. Go ahead and pull out your phone and then like just pull up a text with that first person on the list. It's Sally. And then I wait for them to do that. Cool. Now I'm gonna have you copy and paste this message I'm gonna send you, and then just copy and paste it into that. Awesome. Go ahead. Is there anything you would change about it, or does that look good? Okay, cool. Go ahead and hit send. Okay, let's do it for the next person. We're just gonna do it super quick for all these people. That way they're not surprised when I give them a call. Just do it right there because if they don't do it right there, they're not going to do it 90% of the time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Q. Everyone go ahead. We're gonna unmute. Give Q a round of applause. That was so freaking great. Well, now I'm bouncing in the there we go. Awesome. Thank you so freaking much, Q. My sound is bouncing in the neighborhood.